Welcome to Householders, a conversation about American life as Zen practice. I'm Inga Annie Wade.
And I'm Kyosaku John Mitchell, and we're lay members of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center. How you been feeling?
Well, I will say that, I'm sure this happens to everybody, but I probably notice it more because I have an illness that's directly related to inflammation. But it's kind of moved on from like a emotional grieving to my body hurts. And I have, I've talked about my avascular necrosis, so there's a lot of joints that are already like really prone to inflammation. So they've been very painful for a while now, where I actually have recently used the wheelchair when I hadn't had to use it in at least 2 years. So that was a little upsetting, and I think it was really stressful for both my husband and I, because that means we have to like do things differently, like do chores differently, and causing some just discussions and stress and everything. So that's where I'm at. I am starting to feel a little bit better emotionally. I think there's some things that I could do to maybe improve it even more, but I've been doing more creative stuff, and I've kind of just forced myself to, even though it was stressful to do at first. But once I started getting in the groove of it, now it's actually helped me heal a little bit,
The processing.
But I still have the physical problems, so
yeah, I was going to ask you something about that. Like, I have some friends who have like pretty involved spiritual practices who also have various forms of chronic pain for various reasons. And they talk a lot about sort of the bi-directional nature of it in terms of like emotion and pain, and that like the pain causes emotions, the emotions cause pain. Processing the emotions processes the pain. Like not processing the emotions prevents processing the pain. Like it seems very deeply entangled. I'm wondering if it is like that for you, or if there's anything you can say about the relationship between those kinds of pain.
So yeah, the relationship between pain and stress and grieving, and is that what you're asking?
Yeah, I mean, I guess stress is sort of a third piece, because both difficult emotions and physical pain seem like sources of stress, causes of stress, and that stress could exacerbate both of them.
Well, emotional stress.
Yeah.
If they've really like at least documented that there is a correlation between emotional stress and like inflammation. So like, especially when you have an autoimmune disorder or anything, really any chronic illness, it's just that at least has a little bit to do with inflammation. I think they mostly do. Most of them do have a correlation with that. They say like, if you have lupus, don't stress out, like you got to do things to make sure you don't stay under a lot of stress. It's really important, because if you're under enough stress, then you can get a lupus flare. I'm not 100% sure that I don't have a lupus flare, because having a death in the family is one of the number one causes of like a lupus flare. But it doesn't happen right away all the time. It's not like, oh, someone died and then the next day I got a lupus flare. It could take a while. It's a delayed like reaction. So I was actually fine for a while physically after my dad passed away. And then, but I think it's the same emotionally too. Sometimes it takes a while for like feelings to catch up with you, and it also takes a while for that stress to turn into inflammation. So I'm dealing with the after effects of all of that now.
Mm-hmm. Is it hard to keep track of all the causes and conditions with these like delays of time? And
Yes.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. You just have to pay so close attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
I think most people are unaware of especially if you're healthy. I think it's even harder to know what causes certain things to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Because you would think that, okay, well, let's just talk about one thing, daylight savings time, since that happened this week.
Yeah.
And that's royally effed me up for some reason.
Yeah. Well, like your baseline sensitivity to it is probably through the roof.
Yeah. Especially right now.
Yeah.
So I'm already sensitive, and it's like, okay, now let's change the time on you. Now you're going to think it's different, but it's just, you literally get jet lagged.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that people really take it for granted, but everybody says they feel bad this week or that they're tired this week or something. And I'm like, well, that's because of daylight savings time, but it's so simple and it's so easy that like nobody wants to admit that that's what it is.
Oh, I'll admit it. Right. Well, it's easy for me to say my children don't go to sleep anymore. So
yes, the children notice before you do.
Yeah. Yeah, it messed me up too. But I mean, it's like one of the great injustices of the human body that like sleep is so negatively affected by any kind of stress.
Yeah.
And like, it's the one thing you need in order to get better from the stress, right?
Yeah.
Like, or at least the most important thing. And
sometimes even good stress can cause like loss of sleep. So that's annoying too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's like, I've actually really gotten a lot out of the Zen literature on sleep issues. Mm-hmm. Surprisingly a lot, because there's so much, like in Hakuin, there's stuff, it's for people who are freaking out meditating for 12 hours every day, you know, that like they can't sleep either. And there's like basically guided meditation. Sensei has taught them to me they're really, I guess, for like reducing anxiety on the spot. But, you know, in the tradition, they're prescribed as like interventions to prevent like breakdowns in the like on sesshin or whatever, you know, like from people getting it. He called it Zen sickness, I think. And it's not like I'm suggesting that. It's just like it proves to me really that there's so much feedback. There's so many feedback loops between, you know, what we call mind and what we call body. And there's certain levers we can push, but I'm not actually saying like we have control over this. I'm kind of saying the opposite. It's like the conditions affect us so much, and like we can control some conditions and we can't control others. And when the ones we can't control are so far out of control, like what you're going through, or like the time completely changing by an entire hour on everybody, like you can't withstand that. You're going to feel that as stress and activation and disorientation.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's a nice thought that like, okay, so now like I'll have a longer daylight like range, but I don't know. I feel like I was doing fine before.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. It doesn't help anybody to introduce this. The Senate passed a law to repeal it today. Did you see that?
No way.
Yeah. Not until next year. I mean, for like stupid economic reasons, they can't do it until November of next year. But
well, can you tell me, do you know that, are they doing permanent daylight savings time, or are they just getting rid of daylight savings time?
They're doing permanent daylight savings time.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. So like November of next year, the clocks will not fall back. But we have to do the change 2 more times first.
Okay. But like gaining an hour in November, that never really makes as big of a difference.
No,
as
I love that.
An hour. Yeah.
But the thing that we don't appreciate down here is that in New England, when daylight savings time ends, it gets dark at 4:00 in the afternoon, which is awful. And I wouldn't wouldn't want that. I actually had that for 5 years when I was in college. So like,
that's depressing.
Yeah, no good. So this is the right way to go if this country's going to go one way or the other.
Yeah, I agree. Well, that's great news.
Yeah.
So that makes me pretty happy.
Doesn't help you right now.
No, but there's hope.
Yeah.
That I won't have to do this forever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, it was about dang time.
Yeah.
That's all I got to say about that. But I know that you also have a lot going on in your life right now as well.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's not on the same level, but it's still really core emotional stuff. I'm just having a lot of like community struggles right now.
Okay.
And the Sangha's not involved, but that's kind of part of it. It's like I'm not like really getting community out of my involvement in the Sangha, which is hard to explain. I mean, you and I talking every week was a big part of that, and so now that we're back, I'm it's like perfect timing with the
John, I definitely agree with that, and like I didn't feel as connected to the community after, and also I stopped going to the community the communications committee as well.
Yeah.
So I had not been in much contact with anybody.
Yeah. So like us getting back in the swing of things last week actually came at a time that couldn't have been more perfect, because in the week that has followed, I've had some like I've had some friend breakups.
Oh no.
I think maybe they're not permanent, but like projects and like excuses to hang out with some people that I've been hanging out with a lot for months have fallen apart for like social reasons, and that's been kind of sad. And it's
hold on, I just like context. Mm-hmm. Is it like you said friend breakup? Sometimes things fall apart, but you're still friends. Like
yeah, it's kind of like a nothing's ever going to be the same kind of situation. Like I'm the one in this. There's actually two situations, so I'm just describing the first one, they happen at the same time. So it's sort of like, what is the common denominator here, you know? But like in this situation, I was the one who began to feel uncomfortable with what was happening and wanted to back out. And it happened in kind of an explosive way, and with the main person that I'm still trying to be close to, I'm continuing to have like back channel conversations every day, and it's going okay, but it's still really hard. And just a rhythm of being with a bunch of people and doing a bunch of creative, cool stuff together is gone. And so that's sad. But then at the same time, there's another thing, and this is in-person stuff in Atlanta, so I'm a little more hesitant to even characterize it as vaguely as I just characterized that. But like there is a good idea to start something. It's a men's group for like men around like 30s and 40s men, young parent. Like it wasn't explicitly, the intention wasn't explicitly set for it to be for parents, but so far everybody involved is a father, and that seems like a central motivation for wanting some togetherness and some like safe space to talk in as, men and fathers. And we had our first meeting, and it was I was like the odd guy out in a lot of ways, like point of view, way of speaking, sort of level of spirituality or something. Like I was just received as very weird by the other guys, and
They must have been really basic.
well, it's actually kind of the opposite. They were like more.
You're the basic one?
They were more complicated. They were like very philosophical and intellectual about their parenting and like their approach to life, and like.
Sorry, it sounds funny to me that you were with a group and you were the less philosophical one.
Well, but it was about family and relationships.
Okay.
Like if we were there to talk about our interests or something, our hobbies, I'm sure it would have been fine. But it was like about raising children, and like I felt like I was expected to have like a favorite podcast about parenting and like a favorite book about parenting that I like refer to all the time, and like a coherent philosophy to articulate about like what sort of father I am.
Oh.
And that seems to be sort of what the cultural norm that everybody else had was. And like that, meaning it's not just normal to do that, but that like that's the standard for like what a responsible parent is.
Right.
And there may have been some like gendered nature to it too, thinking back on what they were saying, like almost like our wives are like instinctively good parents who do all of the emotional and domestic labor. And so we have to like, it's like the equivalent of working out. It's like we have to like beef up our like sociological and anthropological knowledge about parenting so that we can be like the superior contributing parent and like lead the family with like our brilliant ideas.
Is so weird.
Yeah, I'm having a hard time explaining it because I truly could not fathom living this way.
No, but I mean, I'm sure some men have a hard time, but I'm sure some women have a hard time, I understand the biological, like women, give birth to the children and then they like kind of, they're babies and they kind of bond with them. They have like that, sort of instinctual bond. But like beyond that, I mean, I kind of think that I guess what they could be, if they took the society angle, like, well, we weren't really taught to be, men weren't really taught to be good parents or nurturers or something. That's one thing, but
I think there's some of that too.
Saying it's in their nature, though, I feel like, I don't know. I think it's just untrue for a lot of men.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was the one being like, I don't know what kind of parent I am. I respond to the situation that I'm in with whatever I've got. And I try and listen to my kid and respond to their need and regulate my emotions and not direct them at my child. And I do my best and I screw it up half the time and then I fix it. And like, that's all I'm capable of. And they were looking at me like I was an alien because I didn't have like a checklist in my brain about like what to do in a situation or like have, and then like the part that was the part that was the worst received was when I said that I find it really challenging to be a parent and I want to like the thing I'm working on in parenting is like liking it more, like that's what I said. And that was like way too real for them because they all then had to go and explain why being a father is like the greatest thing that's ever happened to them, their sole purpose in life, their ultimate fulfillment. They no longer have any like doubts about their path, and it gives them energy to have like challenging experiences with their children and overcome them. And, and like, it almost sounded like they were kind of repeating ideas that they'd been like reading and thinking about and rehearsing rather than like speaking from their heart. But I don't know if that's true. Like that might just be my projection on them because I couldn't imagine being supported by the kinds of resources they were talking about. But like
Yeah.
the operative thing, like I didn't come out of it feeling like a bad father. I came out of
No.
it feeling like an outcast, like person. Like I
Mm-hmm.
was alienated from my peers by this experience.
I mean, well, did you know any of the people before you went to that?
I knew them okay. There was like
Uh-huh.
there was a clear order in which I like one of them I knew from a long time ago and hadn't seen
Mm-hmm.
haven't like I've reconnected with after several years of not seeing each other. The other is one I met in the last year and am getting to know and have spent some time with. And then the
Mm-hmm.
other is like someone who's around that I don't know very well. And the four of us were put together because like we are in a community with each other and we all wanted to have something like this.
Gotcha.
It wasn't like starting it with my four best friends.
Yeah.
So
But they were at least acquaintances and,
yeah, we knew each other. We've all spent time together before, but it was the first time we've gotten into a situation of like sitting around a fire and sharing emotionally alone.
Yeah. So you felt like, I mean, I don't know how vulnerable that statement is, but you felt like maybe you shared some vulnerable stuff with them and they were just kind of like, well, that's not right. Like, really, you should feel like this.
It's not even that they responded to me. It's that they didn't respond to me. They just sort of went like, okay, and talked about something else, about their own philosophies, it was like badly facilitated.
Mm-hmm.
That might have been the problem. Like maybe these kinds of conversations are supposed to have somebody with like a role and a skill set of a facilitator. But to me, I was just like talking to some guys I know and I shared something. It was super. I mean, like I didn't say it. I summarized it to you just now. Like what I said was actually much more painful and emotional than the way I just said it.
Okay.
And also pretty clearly in a way of like I don't have space to share this way anywhere else, so now here in front of three guys at a fire I'm gonna share it this way. And it was like belly flopping. It was like trust falling and everyone turning around and getting on their phones,
Ouch.
So and the end of the story is I emailed them all and told them that, and it was okay. They did okay.
Okay.
In their responses to me, like we'll try again. They will be aware.
But yeah, with this plus the other situation you described,
yes,
makes you feel like you're not welcome in these places.
The world, yeah. Like right at the same
world,
time.
It equates to the world right now because it's kind of like since things are opening up back again a little bit, and this is your first like reintroduction into the. I mean, maybe not your first, but
close to it, yeah, yeah.
And things aren't going super well.
No, and it's like when it's two of them. Like when it's one of them, when it's one situation, the problem is them, right? Or the problem is unique or something. But if two unrelated social situations go wrong on me at the same time, the only like conclusion that I'm like emotionally able to draw is that I'm not fitting in. Like, like it feels like the whole world because it's like the common denominator is me.
Well, I mean, based on what you described, just with that one situation, because the first one I think was a little too vague for me to make like a judgment call on whether like you're the one not fitting in. But I guess you're not fitting into that situation in particular. But I don't think there's anything wrong with you in particular, I guess.
Thanks for saying so. I mean,
it just wasn't a good fit.
It's not that I think there is. It's just that I'm feeling like there is. And the reason that it feels relevant to the broad scope of this conversation is that it's like really sitting hard in my body. Yeah. I don't feel good this week. Yeah. And the sleep is definitely not helping. And the change in light at the times of day is totally confusing. And the way that we just have to, I mean, I don't want to make it into like a politics statement, but like the way that we just have to keep going. I'm sure you're feeling this 1,000 times more than I am. That we have to just eventually at some point just like get back into the saddle and continue doing stuff in the same way and just like drag this aching body along with us.
That's exactly how I feel right now. Yeah, but it works. It does work. It's just really, really hard.
Yeah. When you say it works, what do you mean? I mean, I agree, but what do you mean?
Okay, well, I mean, I realized what was going to help me. I don't want to say get past like my dad's death because it's not like something I want to get past. Like, I don't know what that would mean, but you know, like recovery emotionally, maybe. Mm-hmm. And I knew it from like the very beginning when it was happening. What the answer was, and I was with my family in Austin over New Year's, and they all got around this campfire, and my sister-in-law gave us instruments, and she was like, all right guys, play, and everybody was just kind of playing, but there's no organization, and then finally someone picked up a guitar and I just started singing. You know, I have a loud voice, and I've been in like a very jam heavy band for a few years, so I'm used to doing stuff like that, and like you know, after I started singing, everybody was having like a really good time. Not that they weren't having a good time before, but you know, like having a good time with the task at hand. And it was just like a lot of fun to the point where like, well, it was getting late, and you know, the reason I was there was because of my dad, so I hadn't been sleeping well and stuff. So I was like, well, I should go home. And they're like, oh, you're leaving now? Like, you know, you're the one that's like, you know, carrying all the singing and everything. And I was like, oh, that's awesome. And then my sister, I feel like it was like the next week I stayed there in Austin to be with my dad. My sister was like, we're going to have band practice, which what she meant was just like her and her husband and their friends just, you know, having fun playing music. And, you know, some of them were just learning the instruments that they wanted to play at the time. Not that they were like really new to music, but the instruments they were playing. So, and I was like, yeah, I'll do that. So I sang with them while they were jamming and everything. And it just like was like, oh, why don't I do this anymore? I don't want anything serious. I don't want like to be in a band with like a, you know, we have to like, you know, play this many venues and do this, you know, like that kind of stress. But I just needed to do that. And then the other thing was that like I had been trying to write the short film, and I just dragged at it. Because my friend wanted to make a short film with me, and I'm like, I want to, but I can't. Like, I physically can't do it. So I brought him over, and I was like, let's just talk about it. Like, here's my ideas. It was inspired by my dad I knew he was sick. So after everything that happened, I was getting so many mixed signals about what I can still tell the story about. And I was like, I need you to talk through this with me, because I'm like from such a biased point of view in my head that I can't get out of it. So we talked it out, and I'm almost done with the script now. And just forcing myself to do these things, even though they were really hard to bring myself to do. And I just joined a band. Like Sunday.
Nice.
And it's like a punk band. Like, I don't even really like punk music, but like just playing with them and having a good time, and it, you know, it was just like so much fun that I was like, this is bringing me out of it, doing these creative things. Like, I need creativity in my life, and I can't compromise anymore. So that's what I mean by like it's working. Like, even though I was so stressed out, I'm like, I can't handle another thing to do on top of everything, like all this emotional stuff on top of work. I really haven't gotten a break, because my my vacation was taking care of my dad. So, and going to, doing a sort of a funeral ceremony. So, like, I need a break. But then the more that I thought about it, it's like, well, if I can't get a break, I still have to do this. Like, I still have to keep myself going and doing it. And that's how I kind of deal with everything. So just keep going. Not that taking a break is bad, because I did take a break from stuff too. But if I know that there's like healing in art and creativity,
Yeah, that's kind of the other end of the spectrum from what I was feeling of, the dragging the body along. Is like, there's a lot of stuff that one does not want to do that doesn't help, but it also kind of does, just to like
what?
Like work and chores and
housework.
No, and like,
look, you got to do those too. Those are the other things you got to do.
Yeah, but it's like that also helps. This is the thing that I have to admit to myself, and it is like there's a reassurance to it. There's a reassurance to both. I think that there's also a reassurance to the creative way of processing too, which is like, I am still a magical being capable of being alive.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the deal with like getting on with the drudgery too. It's like, I'm a magical being. I can continue to I don't have to give up. I don't have to surrender. I have like strength in here.
I know, and it's so hard, like, because when you're depressed, it's the hardest thing to do to keep going. That's like the most difficult thing. It's like, because it's not, it's like the things don't bring you joy, and they don't like make you feel fulfilled. But if you stop doing them, then you might not be able to start again. Or it would be even more difficult to get back up and start going again.
Yeah. But the thing you said about yourself, and you kind of backpedaled a little after you said it, but you said that just keeping going is sort of your way of handling certain things.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, what it sounds like you're doing is mindfully stepping back into things after you did give yourself some space. Like, I mean, I guess it sounds like music was like right away your way of processing. And but like, coming back to the Sangha, joining the band now, it feels to me like you're making a very deliberate return to this kind of activity. You're not just like doing it on autopilot while in a state of shock. At least that's how it feels to me.
True, but I think, and that might, I mean, I think it's a little bit of both. It's kind of weird when you think about it, because I did step away from stuff, but I still had to continue other things, like you were saying. Like, I still went to work. Yeah. I still did the dishes. Well, I actually, Ian does the dishes. I shouldn't. I still did the laundry.
Yeah, there you go.
I still like, I still exercised every day. I still tried to eat healthy. So that is also what I mean by I had to keep going. And I was looking forward to. I was saying, okay, we're going to also do creative things, We're going to do it. It was hard to get there, but it was always a part of the plan. So I think even planning for them, is my idea of keep going. It's just like have an idea of where you're headed, even if you're not there yet.
Householders is a production of the Atlanta Soto Zen Center. in Atlanta, Georgia, and the Silent Thunder Order. Find us on the web at ASZC.org.
Our Sangha depends on your support. You can donate by PayPal to donate at storder.org. Gasho.